Hi everyone. It's that time of year again where we fly down to Orlando, Florida for AGBT 2026 and reporting live for Jen is Jen's Deputy Editor-in-Chief, Julianna LeMieux, who has managed to get out of shoveling 2 feet of snow outside her apartment in favor of pina coladas and free drinks and blue skies. How lovely. How are you doing, Juliana?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I'm doing great. I am working. I just want to let you
Sure,
know.
sure, sure.
But I will say that, yeah, it was kind of perfect timing with the weather that's going on at home. So,
Yeah.
yeah, happy to be here and as always happy to be at AGBT, and it's just, it's only been 24 hours. It's already a great meeting.
I know Orlando is not Marco Island, which is sort of the ancestral home of the event, and I think they've permanently left the Gulf Coast now for various reasons, partly because of the weather, partly because they've outgrown the cap on attendees there. But I understand that you've got a full crowd there this year. There were some travel cuts that have made it difficult for some people to travel and attend last year. So it sounds like the band is back together, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sentiment is really was shown so crystal clear in the opening plenary session. So last year, if you remember, Eric Green and other NIH colleagues of his, NHGRI colleagues of his, were not in attendance. But Eric's back this year, so it feels like everything's back to normal. And actually, he was given, I'm honored with an award at the plenary session last night. So yeah, like a really nice start to the meeting. Yeah.
Eric, we should say for those new to watching these videos, of course, the former veteran director of the NHGRI, the National Human Genome Research Institute, and co-founder of AGBT, who has now just landed a pretty interesting new gig now that he's left government employ.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's chief medical officer at Illumina. And I saw him once and said a quick hello. I have not had a chance to catch up with him in detail, but I have seen him walking around with his puffy vest that says Illumina on it. And
Of course.
I've seen him in the Illumina suite. So I think he is, just absolutely embracing the role. And I'm excited to talk to him a little bit about, what exactly, like what vision he's bringing to the company and things like that. So that, yeah, that'll be a fun conversation.
So glad he got his embroidered Patagonia vest. That's very important, which he won't need, of course, in Orlando. So you mentioned the opening ceremony, and I know you're working because before the meeting even started on Monday evening, you'd already posted your first story about Ultima. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so yeah, that was they really kicked off the meeting with this launch. And I will say I think the NGS race is hot. And so every company there's I think people expect every company to be saying something, some advance or making some moves. But I will say I think it was a little surprising that they actually are launching two whole new instruments. So their original instrument, which they launched in 2024, is the UG100. So now they've launched the UG200 series. So they're both UG200. So this UG200 and UG200 Ultra, um, different size, different throughputs. The kind of bigger or more high throughput one they're calling what Gilad Almogi, the CEO, said was extreme high throughput, and then the other. So, but I mean, they're you can read the details in my story or otherwise, but it's basically more flexibility, higher throughput in the Ultra one, different wafers of different sizes, a smaller price point on the machines, and oh, and also the big thing is they've changed how they used to have a separate box for the PCR, and they've gone from emulsion PCR to isothermal amplification. So actually the footprint of the not the main big box, but like the footprint of the whole platform is reduced in size. So
Right.
just like improvements over I mean, they've only had the UG100 out for like it will launched for 2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, so again, the NGS race is hot, and so we'll see what happens.
One detail in your story, correct me if I'm wrong, but you, I think, said that the Ultima, in contrast to some of the competitors out there, this is a sequencing only
Oh yeah.
box, right? They're not trying to make it multifunctional.
Yeah, so that's interesting between the different companies. So, and that actually brings me to more news, which was I just basically got out of the gold sponsor lunch, which was Illumina. Illumina is the gold sponsor. So they have
Right.
90 minutes. Nothing else is going on during these sponsored lunch talks. So everybody's in there with their box of lunch. And their message is clear and strong, multiomics. And in fact, Jacob Tyson, the CEO, said, this is no longer about just DNA sequencing. The future belongs to those platforms that will be doing much, much more. So they were talking about their single cell, their spatial. They talked about proteomics and their sequencing and also their methylation. So two very contrasting ways to approach this. So if you talk to Gilad, he would say, we're going to focus on sequencing and let customers use whichever of the single cell spatial proteomics platforms that they want. And then we'll just kind of, really be hyper focused on the sequencing part. Illumina taking a really different approach. So that will be very interesting to watch as well, which one customers are, prefer. And that's
I
just
know
one
you've also,
difference between the two companies. But here, that's been, a pretty big distinction.
right. I know, speaking of life beyond NGS, you've also been talking to Stellaromics.
Yeah. Yeah. So they also launched their machine, which their instrument is called the Pyxa. And the press release came out last week. So another kind of like early launch, everybody's getting going before.
Yeah.
I'm like, we aren't even started yet. But I met with Todd Dickinson this morning. He's the CEO, and he's been in genomics a long time, different companies, but originally Illumina, like one of the early Illumina people. And so so the instrument is launching here, and that's really interesting because it's really the first commercial 3D spatial instrument. So that's not to say that the other spatial companies, the Brookers, 10X's, whatever, are not working on 3D spatial. But as far as a company that's hyper focused on 3D spatial and that their instrument is a 3D spatial instrument, Stellaromics is kind of the definitely the first one out of the gate on that. So that will also be really interesting to see adoption of that instrument. And also, it really does kick off a bigger conversation about 3D spatial and about how that may change this spatial
Mhm.
biology, how it's going to allow other more different questions to be asked. And neuroscientists are really, I think, the first group that talks about adopting it because you can, trace neurons through tissue and things like that. So we'll see about that, but that's interesting. And I met with them, I think it was last year, actually, just kind of preliminarily. But so it's nice to see them launching the instrument here. Yeah.
Okay. Another company we just saw the CEO just 10 minutes ago, just before we started recording, Rade Drmanac from Complete Genomics, looking very relaxed and very happy. And
Yeah.
I think he has every reason to be happy. I wonder if you could fill the audience in on what their big news is, really hot off the press.
Yeah, I didn't know that this was coming at all. We just saw the press release yesterday morning, but they are in works to be acquired by a Swiss company called Swiss Rocket. And I didn't. It was. So I sat down with Rade this morning earlier for about an hour, and heard the story of how this all came about. And Rade's Serbian, as is the CEO of Swiss Rocket, and they were both working as like advisors to the Serbian government and met. This was about 2 years ago, and they met and started talking. And um, Rade had a lot to say about how this is going to really be the next phase of his vision. He spent, I mean, we should just say he's such a pioneer in this space. He developed some of the early NGS technology. Then the cool MPS was developed again, by him and his team. More recently, maybe I'm gonna say like 15 years ago-ish. And so, now the big thing about this acquisition that he is so excited about is it's going to bring that sequencing technology to applications. And so he's really excited about, multiomics of screening health and just they'll still sell instruments and things like that, but like really just building out some applications with the help of Swiss Rocket because I think that that's, what
Yeah.
Swiss Rocket's really good at. So,
Yeah. I mean, I think the details still have to come out, but presumably this certainly will help them refocus on the North American market, which I think was difficult under their former owners.
Yeah.
And as he explained to us just off camera, the Chinese company that did own Complete MGI will still get royalties
Yes.
under this new arrangement. So it sounds like it's a win-win for all concerned. So we'll be
Yeah,
following
and
that
as far
closely.
as it was explained to me, it is a complete, I forgive the pun, but is it a complete break from MGI and BGI?
Yeah,
So they
yeah,
are really a US corporation that will be owned by a Swiss company.
yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned Illumina a little earlier, Juliana, and I guess with Illumina now we have to talk about Roche because Roche made some of the biggest news in the NGS world. Finally, it seems poised to make a big splash. Really been trying to do for 20 years, you could argue, since the acquisition of 454 almost 2 decades ago. Is there any flesh on those bones? What's the mood? What have you heard?
We already know so much about the platform. The platform's name is the Excelios. So they talked about it here last year. They presented tons of data at ASHG in the fall. So actually, what everybody's kind of waiting for are, I would say, two big things. One is like the final specs of the instrument. So we just don't know exactly, I mean, some of it can, people, there's a lot of murmuring about, because of what they've presented so far, which is quite a bit of data. And then the other thing is the cost of the reagents. So these things, two very important pieces of information that I think everybody will get on. I mean, we think everybody will get on Wednesday. They have the talk, but we won't know until then. And I haven't heard anything myself. So, but kind of actually taking a very different approach to like what we were talking about with Ultima. So Ultima launched two instruments this week, and like nobody knew this was coming. Like it was a complete surprise. Roche has like trickled out so much information. It's just taking a really different approach. And yeah, so we'll see. I don't know. I don't know the thinking behind either of those strategies, but we'll see how it plays out.
Well, Juliana, it sounds like the meeting, not surprisingly, is off to a fantastic start. Have fun while you're there. Keep the stories coming, and we look forward to recording another catch up with you in the next day or two, certainly
Yeah.
before the thing wraps up towards the end of this week. And you'll have a full debrief on your monthly talk show, Gen Live. Tell us who's going to be on that show next week.
Yeah, that's always such a fun one. So on Monday at noon Eastern, I'll be joined by four people, all of whom are here and all of whom are, former Gen Live panelists. So Jasmine Plummer will be joining us from St. Jude's, Catherine Aquino, who runs a core um, in Switzerland, also Charlie Johnson, who runs a core at Texas, and Nick Banovich, who's at TGen. So it's a nice mix of real NGS experts, spatial experts,
Yeah.
single cell. I mean, a lot of people can talk about a lot of these different areas. So we'll cover all the ground. We'll cover all the ground. Yeah.
Very good. We look forward to that and look forward to seeing you again soon from AGBT. Juliana, thanks so much. Enjoy the next session or cocktail or wherever you're going off to now.
Session. I'm going to a session. Thanks, Kevin. See you tomorrow.
Bye bye.